Hello and welcome to The Nation. I'm Gerard Ratnam. Malaysia is currently locked in a battle to secure who will be its Prime Minister after Saturday's election, which resulted in the country's first ever hung parliament. Now, in this edition, I'm joined by three guests to share their perspective on the considerations for the next government. In studio, joining me is MUJIBU Abdul MUIS. He's a political analyst, and via Skype we have our usual suspect, AZMI HASSAN, and joining us later will be ARINAH Najwa, who is the senior analyst for BowerGroupAsia. She'll be joining us then. Just so we have a timestamp on this, today is the 21st of November. It's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we still do not have a government. As of now, we have an extension till 2 p.m. tomorrow. Mujib, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. Before I get into talking to AZMI HASSAN, I'd just like to ask you your thoughts from Saturday to now. I mean, well, a lot of people say, oh, we're in a mess, but this is political maturity. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think this is some consideration that need to be taken by everybody, that we are going to a very certain that this is going to be our next trend in our political election. So whatever things that happen right now, it is negotiation between blocks within this time frame is going to be long. But somehow we need to respect that this is the people's voice. They have decided through the ballot box, and there will be no parties or coalition will reach 112. And of course, with this time constraint, we need to form a government which is as soon as possible, due to the fact that we are going to have a budget to be approved. Since the old budget is not going to be used for the next government, and of course you only have what, less than 1 month, maybe less than 2 months for this thing. So I think they need to resolve this ASAP.
So in the peninsula, we are worried about what's being said here online, social media, so on and so forth. But what's it like for people you know from your hometown in Sabah? More so, you're from Lahad Datu. So what is the noise coming out of there? What are people there saying?
Yeah, I think whatever things that they voice up there in Lahad Datu is the same thing whatever the people from the peninsula voice up too. They are concerned about the economical conditions. Yeah, they are hoping that this election will send a very strong and capable government, yeah, regardless of who's going to lead the country. Because things that really concern is how they are going to get a job and put food to the table. This is the same things happen everywhere. But somehow people of Sabah really thinks that whoever formed the government, yeah, is not going to neglect Sabah right as well, because this is also the concern of the Sabahan.
Right. I'm going to bring in AZMI shortly, but before I get there, do you think that people in the peninsula versus people in Borneo, do you think we are removed from each other's politics?
Well, regardless of what you are reading, yeah, because of you can simply see how Sabahan were trying to, it's not deviate away from the federal politics, since the narrative there is different according to what kind of party that come out with their narrative for the locals. But somehow we simply believe that Sabah will prosper with work together with the peninsula under a federation. This is still acceptable largely in Sabah, but somehow we need to try. We need to strengthen this kind of cooperation.
Right. So regardless of what happens, whoever takes the government, do you think we're healthy democratically?
Yeah, of course.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to see if AZMI is online, if we can get AZMI online. AZMI, thank you very much for joining us. You've been busy. You've been on all TV screens I've been looking at. I'm so jealous, AZMI. But thank you very much for doing this. Now, today, I mean, everyone's running around. It's a total circus today. Press conferences here, there, everywhere, but all in the name of democracy. Now, from Saturday till now, and we did not get much of your opinion on Saturday. From then till now, what do you see happening? What are you processing in your head, and what do you think is not a healthy thing which is happening at this point as we move towards trying to put together a new government?
Well, Gerard, it's not been over 72 hours yet. It's only 48 hours when we first cast our vote. So I guess there are a lot of differences within this bloc party, either Perikatan Nasional with Barisan Nasional or Pakatan Harapan Nasional. There are a lot of differences need to be ironed out. So I think by tomorrow, I think by tonight, I guess we will know what kind of federal government that we will have. But again, Gerard, last September, the Italians went to the polls, and only in October, late October, only they can know what kind of federal government do they have. And same thing with Israel, I guess. So I think 72 hours, I think it's still time. A lot of time for those key players to negotiate, so that I don't want to see after they form the government there'll be a lot of internal bickering because the differences are not ironed out. So let us give them some time, Gerard.
So now, and I'm going to open this question to the both of you, are broad coalitions or the new government, what will be the new government, the latest incarnation of the tradition in Malaysia and power sharing, and is this healthy? Let's start with you, Mujib, and then we'll get to AZMI shortly. Yeah.
I think when you come to a multiracial country like this, with the setting of political struggle is always put under the what we call local and racial perspective. It is very difficult for you to have a party who are going to be a dominant like what we used to have in the last election before. But somehow you need to understand that this so-called cooperation is going to be under what we call a grand coalition. And key perspective for the successfulness of a grand coalition is how you are going to create some kind of elite cooperation. And this is thing that although we have deviated from our what we call previous practice in politics, but somehow this structure is still intact. And what we are seeing today is actually a reflection of how the so-called elite games, the oligarchs, is going to discuss among themselves and form a government, is actually still bring forward to this political setting, although we are actually talking about neglecting UMNO and so on and so forth. Right,
let's go to AZMI once again. AZMI, you've heard what Mujib had to say. What are your thoughts on this broad coalitions, new government? I guess the word here is integrity. It keeps coming back over and over again. Now, if you're not going to put your right foot forward and think of where we are, because, I mean, the elephant in the room here is we're always talking about your color, my color, what you get, what I get. So I guess this is the problem we are facing. We are so afraid of each other. Now, how do we get past this? And what are your thoughts on what Mujib just had to say?
Yeah, true, Gerard. I think the Grand Coalition, I guess, who have thought that for the last 48 hours, Barisan Nasional will be, because both Nasional and also Pakatan Harapan need Barisan Nasional. I just could not think that Bersatu can work with Barisan Nasional or UMNO for the last few days. I think it's something that impossible, but right now, this is something possible. And more so, can Pakatan Harapan work with UMNO, or DAP can together form a government with UMNO? This is something that are unlikely to happen for the last few days, but I think there is a possibility for that. So I guess we as a Malaysian, they have to accept our fate, I guess, for this party bloc to work with each other. But the most important thing is that we want a very efficient government. We want a minister or ministers that can deliver. I think that's the most important thing. For me, Gerard, that's why I'm wearing white today, because I don't mind whoever lead the government, as long as the government can lead us and also the nation, Gerard.
I knew there was something wrong with him wearing white today. He's always a very colorful man. But saying what you're saying too, I also understand that within every coalition, you have to look back at your coalition and say, who are our strong men and women in here that will form the next cabinet? And when you talk about cabinet, we talk about the year ahead, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and how we're going to get back on track economically. Do you worry about that, and what must be put forward in thinking with regards to the year ahead? Because economically, it's going to be quite a stretch and a challenge. AZMI?
Yes, Gerard, I want the best. I think all of us want the best in our government. And yesterday, when Premier Abang Jo put out the condition 1, 2, 3, 4, I think that's very, very peculiar. The condition is that Perikatan Nasional plus GPS Sarawak plus GRS Sabah and more peculiar must include Barisan Nasional. I think why Abang Jo, the Premier of Sarawak, stated that kind of condition because there is some apprehension in terms of forming the government if Perikatan Nasional is the major player. So I guess not only us has some apprehension about we want the best, but the coalition also, the bloc party also have some apprehension. But by the end of the day, I'm really hoping that by tomorrow, I guess, or at least by tonight, some form of signal can be put out so that we can know which block of the party can form the federal government.
I'll get back to you after the break, Mujib, but we've got about a minute left. And before I let you go, very quickly, now, we want this thing to be airtight and solid. Yeah. What do we need to remember about this? Because coalitions can be really loose and it can fall apart as soon as something goes wrong. So what, and you've been doing this for a long time, what must we be careful about as a collective, as a nation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gerard, I think all the agreement, whether Barisan Nasional with Pakatan Harapan or Barisan Nasional with Perikatan Nasional, must be inked, must be agreed upon, and also must be made public so that there will be no surprises after the federal government is formed. So I guess it must be made public. And what Abang Jo or Premier of Sarawak said yesterday, I think he want to make it public, his request in the term of request from GPS Sarawak. So the most important thing, Gerard, is that make all the agreement known to us so that we can evaluate who will break this particular thing or who will adhere to it, Gerard.
Right, I've got 40 seconds, your message to Malaysia before I let you go and before we take a break, we'll come back with you. 40 seconds.
Something that are impossible, it will happen most probably. So I guess I'm lucky to be a voter, Gerard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. AZMI Hassan there joining us. We hope to hear from him as we move on and push on and find out when a new government comes in place. I'm sure AZMI will be joining us once again. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined once again by Mujib, and ARINAH NAJWA joins us via Skype right here on The Nation, Bernama TV. Stay with us. Considerations for a new government. Thank you very much for staying with us right here on The Nation. Joining us online via Skype is ARINAH NAJWA. She was with us on election day. She's a senior analyst from BowerGroupAsia. Thank you very much for joining us, ARINAH. We're going to get to you in a short while. Now, we're looking at DPMs, they're talking about having a DPM in Sabah, Sarawak and all. Is this like big news in Sabah and Sarawak? Do people like talking about stuff like this? Is it we need to have a DPM from here?
I think what...
Or people are like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think Dato' Tan Sri Abang Jo have spoken enough about this thing. He says that if DPM were offered to Sabahan or Sarawakian, they need a DPM with power. It is not a DPM is just to please everybody from Sabah and Sarawak. Because when you put this into a perspective, they really want this DPM to be powerful enough to have, let's say, an equal power with the Prime Minister in order for them to use this position for the benefit of Sabah and Sarawak. Otherwise, it is no use for having Sabahan or Sarawakian to be a Deputy Prime Minister or to let this...
So what you're saying is we don't want the token face, lah.
Exactly. I think this is clear enough when Tan Sri Abang Jo having said that if the federal government that going to be formed and offered Sabahan or Sarawakian the post of Deputy Prime Minister, this Deputy Prime Minister must come with enough power in order for them to use this position for the benefit of Sabah and Sarawak.
Right. So now on a personal note, as a Malaysian, as a Sabahan, as a Malaysian, do you feel left out in certain conversations?
Well, it is not the question of left out. I think it is not that it is not giving enough or to fulfill whatever thing that they have stated since 1963. This is the thing, because the reflection is the infrastructure is not enough, job is losing out in Sabah and Sarawak, and all the people have need to migrate to Semenanjung for the works. And when they works in Semenanjung, it is not the job with a decent wage. Yeah, because they say that we go to orang Semenanjung go to Sabah, they become boss. But when Sabahan go to Semenanjung, they become coolie. This is not good, and this is actually not a good reflection for resourceful state like Sabah.
At this point, I'd like to bring in ARINAH, NAJWA, the best person to comment on something like this economically. These are questions of bread and butter, economic issues. Now, what he was just saying about, when Sabahans and Sarawakans come here, they feel like, they get jobs, but they don't get, C-suite level jobs, or they don't get managerial positions. They just come here for ordinary jobs. But when we go there, it's different. So that's what he's saying, or at least that's what people seem to talk about, or this is what he's reflected upon in the past minute or so. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Gerard, and thank you for that point. I think, firstly, I don't know whether it's a systemic issue, that there is a lack of, but we can acknowledge that there is a lack of representation when it comes to Sabahans and Sarawakians. I do see it growing, but there needs to be an honest conversation also on what is happening within Sabah and Sarawak and what kind of jobs are there as well, because also it's an issue of what kind of jobs are there then that makes them want to come and move here, right? So even in Sabah and Sarawak, I think a lot of them who do stay there, they stay there because of specific sectors, right? They stay there either in the informal sector, or they're there because of oil and gas, or they're there because of the agricultural sector. So I think there needs to be a look into really what is driving the lack of representation of Sabahans and Sarawakians in leadership. I think there needs to be an honest conversation, because I don't think that's being examined in depth or deeply enough. Yeah.
I like that operative, honest conversation. I'm going to get back to that. But from Saturday till now, what are some of your observations? It's been quite a weekend, moving into Monday. It's quite a Monday for us now, and now it has been pushed forward to a Tuesday. And I'm sure Istana has a lot to deal with at this point too. But from then till now, what are your observations, being a citizen of Malaysia, being a voter, and being a commentator?
Yeah, I think it's definitely quite frustrating, right? Because it seems that, a lot of the politicians are politicking when the Malaysians are kind of having to wait and see, and wait for a result. And we sometimes question whether or not some of these decisions that are being made are really for our own best interests, or is it for those who are in power. But it's good to see, at least in this instance, that the politicians now are forced to negotiate and talk to each other, which is quite surprising. I think I never thought I would see a day where Pakatan Harapan and Barisan Nasional would think about having an alliance. So it makes you question about what exactly is the future moving forward. If all these parties are having to talk together and collaborate with each other, then what then does it look like for the future of politics, because it's so dispersed? I think there's also another conversation since the win of Perikatan Nasional. The citizens have, there seems to be a rise when it comes to more Malay-based coalitions. Religion is also still a strong sentiment amongst the community. Is that something that's reflective of Malaysia, and what will that look like in the next 5 years? So I think it's difficult to ascertain, because there were even some individuals that didn't know that PAS was in Perikatan Nasional, given how complex our political systems are. But it does beg to beg the question, what are Malaysians looking at? Race and religion still on the table, but hopefully it doesn't go to the extreme, and is still moderate to accommodate an inclusive society like ours.
Right. Now, I want to open this next question to the both of you. Many seats were won where the winner got less than 50% of the votes overall. Should we institute a runoff system like they do in the US to ensure that the winner actually represents the majority of locals in a constituency? Very quickly, I'll get your thoughts, then I'll come back to him and finish off this conversation. ARINAH?
Yeah, I think that should definitely be examined. I'm not sure what's the right formula here, because of course the US system is very different to our parliamentary system, but I think it definitely should be considered, because right now, from BN having the lowest seats, they're now the sort of kingmakers where they can form government in either scenario. So I think there needs to be a a re-examining of, what does it look like when it comes to representation of the top parties that actually gain the most votes. Yeah.
Right. So that's a very good thing you brought up, that BN is turned up with the lowest seats, but they're the kingmakers now. A lot of people say that this is not a fair system. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is very unfair, because the people have spoken very clear on Saturday that they really want a new form of government in maybe Perikatan Nasional or in Pakatan Harapan. And of course, what we are seeing today, that the party who won the most seat were like a second party that is going to be having chances of forming a government, and no party cannot form a government if they don't have enough numbers in 112, and we really need to reconsider whether this first past the post election is really suitable for our political setting in the long term.
Now, tabling and passing a budget will be key priority. Once again, this is your area of focus, ARINAH. Many international investors, global market players, and you have a finger on the pulse with regards to this. Global market players will be keeping their eye on this. They're watching everything that's going on right now. What should the focus be on at this point with regards to giving the right optics to these people and making sure they come back and do business with us?
I think once government is formed, whenever that is, there needs to be a clear direction and a plan of what the country is aiming for in the next 5 years. Because right now it seems like it's very ad hoc, it's very reactionary, it's not necessarily visionary or clear to investors. So I think that's the first one. What's the clear plan and what's the agenda for the country in the next 5 years? And then the second thing to do, I think once government is formed, the immediate thing will be to have a Minister of Finance, which may take more time because budget needs to be tabled. It hasn't been tabled. I don't know whether they need to revise it later on and then table it in Parliament within the first quarter of next year. So that's what all investors are going to be looking at. If we look at international scene, there were also some concerns with Perikatan Nasional or PAS being in government, because it was seen as more, this government also, some of them endorsed the Taliban, or there are more conservative sentiments around it. So some investors are also concerned, is that the direction that Malaysia is heading if this is the government that's governing Malaysia?
Right. Yeah. ARINAH, always a pleasure speaking to you. Stay close to home. We will definitely be dialing into you in the next couple of days. ARINAH NAJWA there, senior analyst from BowerGroupAsia. And she made a good point about our alliances and who we go make friends with, because the business world is always watching us. So what would be your 2 cents with regards to this?
Yeah, I think I agree with ARINAH just now, because the election is not only the thing that the world is seeing and of course focusing on Malaysia. It is all about who's going to lead the country and who's going to form a team in which may inject a confidence to the business world, to the neighboring countries, and of course to the major players, not only in international setting but in the domestic setting, because we are not looking for Prime Minister today. We are looking for the Prime Minister and a capable team of doing this thing. And one of the things that really reflects in this cabinet is how this cabinet will going to give a positive insight and of course positive perspective that this country is really heading toward direction with the right and proper policy after this thing.
Right. So what's your advice to Malaysia with regards to that little bit of uneasiness we have now? Some of us, what's important to us is religion and race. For some of us, we want a progressive Malaysia. And we love each other, but somehow now there's some uneasiness. What would be your message to all of us about this as we wait for the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to make it, to help us steer the country into a proper area where we have strong governance and we can move forward and put all this behind us? What would be your message now? We've got about 1 minute left.
Yeah, my message is simple. Give change a chance. That's it. Because this is something that we can expect for a long time to come. Yeah, we are no longer going to have a very solid party to win an election in single-handedly and form a government. And we need to look forward for things that where we can simply say that we need to tone down our differences. Yeah, we are not going to look politics in our narrow and primordial perspective anymore.
Yeah.
So what are the things that we are going to expect is that how well the political players, the elite, is going to put a nation's perspective rather than their political party perspective.
Right. With that, I'd like to thank AZMI Hassan, who's joined us online, geostrategist from Nusantara Academy. We'd also like to thank ARINAH NAJWA, who's an analyst with BowerGroupAsia. And in studios with me, we have MUJIBU Abdul MUIS, a fantastic political analyst, Malaysian, a Sabahan, who's made his way here to sit down and talk to us today. Thank you very much, my friend. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And thank you for staying with us right here on Bernama TV. Keep it locked on to Bernama TV. If you need more information, go to bernama.com. We've got everything out there for you, and we'll be keeping you updated as we progress and we make our way to 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.